Welcome back to Contract Lancer, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Today we're going to be discussing certifications once again, but we're going to be discussing the useless certifications for you developers out there. To round out my certification trilogy, we will dive into some certifications that you should avoid because they are a waste of time, waste of money, and they do not actually help your career as much as the marketing says they do. Trust me on this. You're better serviced going for some certifications over others. And this video will make it very clear. But before I dive into that, I'm going to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Please get this up. I want other contractors and freelancers to see this so that hopefully they don't make the same mistakes and don't waste time on these certifications as well. So stick with me, ladies and gentlemen. I will see you after the whole, like and subscribe thing again, as every YouTuber does. Hey, we're back. Useless certifications. Now, for you developers out there, the key to a good certification are twofold, two keys. Number one is whether or not it goes for the career path you want. So if you're going to be a developer, do you want to go into automation? Do you want to go into machine learning? Do you want to go into security? Do you want to just be a general developer for some technology? That's one thing. I have videos on that for Microsoft, and I have videos on that for AWS, the ones I recommend you to get. Now, what do these videos have in common is that these certifications are hard skill certifications. That's right. That means that skills that are verifiable and skills that can be tested in an interview. So whenever you want to look for a certification, you want to make sure that it is a hard skill certification for you developers. You'll be grinding out, you'll be actually doing the work, you'll be building the applications or whatever. So you need to have skills to back that up. So the certifications that I would avoid as developers are soft skill certifications. Soft skill certifications are ones that cannot really be tested, are more theoretical, and are, if you do get tested on them, it'll be from a memorization point of view. There is no simulation that can be taken. There is no real programming test as you would encounter. It is just, do you know X, Y, or Z? You don't need a certification to do that. And there are some certifications that are pushed upon you or that might look like they are developer friendly certifications, but they're not. And I'm going to give you a few examples right now. For those of you starting out, you might have seen certifications like the A+ certification. A+ is for hardware, the computer hardware, and how to do stuff with it. I was wanting to get an A+ certification because I thought it would help my software career, but it doesn't. It has nothing to do with software. It has everything to do with the hardware of the computer. I'm not getting into too much of it here, but trust me, no one's ever asked for it from a developer, and you don't need that. So you just skip that outright because that is not your wheelhouse. The next one is Network Plus. Just like the A+ certification, this is all about networking. You as a developer don't have to worry too much about networking. Usually there is for most companies, there's another team that does that, or your networking is done through the cloud as it is done these days, and the cloud will handle that. This networking stuff is only I wouldn't get a certification for it because the only places where you will encounter any network stuff is when you're using HTTP verbs and when you're trying to hit endpoints from a server, which is a different thing entirely, and you don't need another certification just to do that. That is just understanding how your language works and how the 3-tier architecture works and whether or not it's in the cloud. And my last certification, the most controversial one on this one, especially since I'm going to upload this on LinkedIn, is the ITIL 4. That certification is not meant for developers. That certification might look like it's meant for developers. It has a lot of the verbiage that you come to expect. It talks about agile, it talks about value and risk and all this stuff. But there is no hard skill to it. No one really asks for you to have an ITIL 4 certification for a developer. This is something that's usually asked for management positions. Project managers, IT managers, people like that. This really gives you more or less a bird's eye view on how to not run a business, but how your business operates from an IT perspective, more or less. And there's a lot of keywords and verbiage here that doesn't help you. If you don't know some of these do apply to you, but most of them don't, because you're not the one who's in charge. You're not going to make these decisions. So as a developer, useless. Most of it is useless and not worth getting unless your job needs it. That is the only caveat that I will say. If there is a job that you deem worthy enough that you need a certification, even if it doesn't help your career, then that's a different thing, and that is your call to make. I have to get the ITIL 4 certification for my job because I like my job and I want to continue having it because the client insists on having it. So that means I have to go get it, which is fine. It isn't a very difficult certification to get anyways, but it is kind of, it doesn't help you as much as the other skills that I've mentioned, like the AWS or Microsoft skills. Now, aside from that, there are actually some certifications that are soft skill certifications that can help you out in certain circumstances. So there are two certifications that I will say have a niche use. If you're a developer that's going into a place that has a lot of security, like the federal government or some part of the government that requires security, DOD, basically any part of the federal government, if you're working on a contract for that, they're going to require you to have some sort of security certification. And these come in two forms, CISSP and the Security Plus. The CISSP is much more hardcore when it comes to cybersecurity, and that's if you're really working with the cybersecurity infrastructure as a developer. Apart from that, if you want to get into a lot of these other federal jobs that have security as their forefront and that is part of their design, then you might need to go for the Security Plus certification. I have a Security Plus certification myself, and it's really used as a barrier of it's not a barrier, but it's used to sift you out from the rest and make sure that gives whoever the clientele is going to be that you have at least some basic knowledge of cybersecurity and security overall when it comes to computers and servers and stuff like that. Apart from these two, they are very niche. If you have a client that really wants a security focused development, then you will need one of these two certifications. And the final certification is the PMP. Yes, I know. I mentioned ITIL 4, which is something for management, and PMP is literally the Project Management Professional certification. I mentioned this certification because there might be people out there, developers included, that want to pivot into the management role. I understand it. You might want to go to the IT management role. You want to be a project manager. And every project manager that I've ever worked for or I've worked under has either had a PMP, have a PMP, or had to get one in order to keep their project management job. It is that important. It is almost required for that position in most jobs today. And I would rank that way higher than the ITIL 4. The ITIL 4 is mostly for people like them too, so it does bridge some knowledge gaps in case they have them, and I understand the purpose of the ITIL 4 in that case. As a developer, it's not really that useful to you, because it doesn't give you the hard skills that you want to advance your career or not advance your career, but you could pivot to some other path in development somehow. Apart from these are just examples that I'm going to give you, but in order for you to decide whether or not a certification is worth it, you have to see whether or not this certification is first a hard skill certification or a soft skill certification, whether or not the job requires it, and whether or not this will help you in the future. Most hard skills certification will help you in the future, especially if you're just going to stick to that focus in your career path. So if you're going into a cloud focus, and getting a cloud certification will definitely help you out. But getting these other soft certs or whatever, they won't. You will learn things on the job, and in fact, there are a few soft skills that I would recommend you enhancing, but you don't need a certification for them. The three soft skills that come to mind for developers are networking, marketing, and socializing. I know some of you developers out there, the whole stereotype that you're a little socially awkward, but there is some truth to that. And I was there before as well. And learning how to communicate with others is a great skill to have. Negotiating, obvious. If you want a better job, you want to find more opportunities, you need to, start chomping on your negotiation skills. And of course, marketing. If you're a contractor or freelancer, you have to market yourself some way, shape, or form, and understand how it works for your career path. Apart from all of this, the only other thing I will say when it comes to certifications is they're not really the most riskiest investment that you're going to get. So all in all, if you're planning on just getting one certification or two certifications in your path, they usually don't cost more than $100 to $300, which isn't that much money in the long run, and it could help your career a lot. So, I do recommend, if you're starting out, to get some sort of certification if you don't have the experience. And if you do have the experience and you have a focus that you want to go into, get that certification too, if you want to pivot into it. Apart from all this, there's nothing really more I have to say about certifications. I believe this rounds out my trilogy. I've given you my, I believe that soft skill certifications are not as helpful to you in your career as hard skill ones, as developers. If you're going into a management role or what have you, then that is something else entirely. But my channel is focused on developers who are contractors and freelancers. So that's who I'm going to give advice to, and that's where the advice is for. Aside from all this, I believe this finishes the certification video trilogy that I had planned. And I hope that this video helps you out in discerning whether or not you want your certification or what kind of certification you're after. If you have any questions, remarks, concerns, I am gonna look at them in the comments, and hopefully we'll get back to this. If I need to do another certification video, I will. But for now, this concludes the trilogy of my certification advice, assumptions. Yeah, I don't know how to end these half the time, so I'm just gonna cut myself off probably. So see you later, Contract Lancer.